Colleagues, let me briefly introduce further myself by saying I've been a teacher in in KwaZulu-Natal, an HOD, a deputy principal for 22 years, from 1987 up to 2009. And then I joined the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I was there for about 7 years. Then in 2015, I left for Wits. Then this year, I moved up here in Pretoria. So I've been a school principal. I know what it means to be a school principal, especially in township schools, and the challenges that school principals experience generally in South Africa. I also have experience of having worked, especially at universities, with colleagues who also have been principals in other departments, like in ex-Model C schools or ex-HOR or HOD schools. So one has got a first sense of what is happening in schools, even though I've not been at schools now since 2009. But I work closely with school principals. I research the work of the school principals because I'm passionate about education, leadership, and development, because we believe that when schools are properly and effectively led, the teachers will be able to enjoy the work that they are doing. So that then is the background. Here at, in Pretoria, I'm now an HOD in the Department of Educational Leadership, Management and Policy. And we work again with school principals, with HODs, with teachers who aspire to be school leaders in the future, and anybody else who is interested in school leadership and management. We also have here a unit for distance education, where we've got quite a number of programs that we offer to colleagues throughout the country, because that unit focuses solely on distance education. If you cannot come to our university and at our campus here in Groenkloof. But for this afternoon, colleagues, as we have seen the program, let me try to share what I have. Tell me, Selwyn, when you can see this on the screen.
I can certainly see it, Prof.
Thank you very much. This afternoon, colleagues, I want to share with you my ideas, but also other people's ideas that I have sourced from various articles that I read as I was preparing for this presentation. And that is Educator Well-Being, Finding Sustainable Solutions for Improved Educator Well-Being. The thinking here, colleagues, is on the focus is on educator well-being, but also looking for sustainable solutions, because they are important, so that what we have at school is not short-lived, but it will sustain us for a very, very long time. So the topic then for discussion is educator well-being, finding solutions for improved educator well-being. And my structure, this is the structure for my presentation. I will introduce my story and then also look at what is educator well-being and why it matters. I will also look at the role of the school principal in educator well-being and the skills that I think a school principal needs in order to manage educator well-being successfully. We will also look at the types of the educator well-being, and then we will have a discussion, and then we can conclude. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start. COVID-19 brought immense loss and grief to many families in this country, in our schools and in our communities, where educators and learners lost parents, friends, relatives, and many others. And to this day, they are still grieving. And there are other people in our communities. I've got neighbors in Durban that I know of, where it's not just the father that died in the family, but other 2, 3 members, 4 members who died in the community, in the family, because of COVID. So these people, these teachers, they are still grieving even today. So the devastation that was caused by COVID-19 has impacted teaching and the quality of teaching, learner outcomes, and educational governance. If you look at our learners, they are struggling. They are struggling because of COVID. If you look at teachers, some people are talking of post-COVID. I'm arguing that we are not yet at post-COVID. We are transitioning towards perhaps the end of COVID. And therefore, the effects of COVID are there for everybody to see. The learners are struggling, and of course, the school governors and governance at the school would be affected by this. Therefore, educator well-being has become important for schools and society than perhaps before the advent of COVID-19 in 2020. Educator well-being colleagues, if you read literature, someone like Mukuna from Lesotho says, educator well-being is the experience of health and happiness. Health and happiness. It includes mental and physical health, physical and emotional safety. So when you are emotionally feeling safe, when you are physically healthy, also a feeling of belonging. At a school level, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that teachers want to feel that they belong. They belong to where? They belong to the school. Therefore, the manner in which they will be treated by the school principal, by those in management, by other teachers, or the learners, how they are treated by the classroom teacher, by the other subject teachers, and by other learners, it matters. It matters because we all want to belong. So there is also this sense of purpose. At a school level, the purpose is education. Schools are about education. Therefore, there is that sense of purpose. There is that sense that you want to teach as a teacher. When you are a school principal, you want to lead and to manage your school. And in all of these, teacher or educator well-being is important. So well-being then is a broad concept and covers a range of psychological and physical abilities. I've alluded to some of these. And I honestly believe, ladies and gentlemen, it is the duty of those in management at schools to assess, first of all, the staff and the learners, to be able to prioritize teacher or educator well-being. First of all, what do we do as leaders, especially the school principal and his or her management team? You assess your school, you assess your staff members. The staff members here, colleagues, I'm not only referring to the academic staff, but I'm also referring to the non-teaching staff. You assess all of those people, and you're working with your teachers. You also assess your learners and their needs, and therefore you prioritize their well-being. So I'm making an argument here that even before COVID-19 set in early 2020, there are studies that seem to suggest that teaching is a very stressful profession. In this country too, and especially in some regions of our country, we have so much violence. And therefore, teaching becomes challenging in those communities. Especially in the Western Cape, you have got so much gangsterism or violence because of gangs. But it's not only, this is not only the preserve of the Western Cape. If you go to townships in KwaZulu-Natal, up here in Gauteng, Mamelodi, which is not far from where I am, Soshanguve, you also have these challenges of stress, of stress teachers because of ill discipline, because of teacher workload, over teacher workloads, huge teacher workloads, where teachers are teaching 40, 50. In the townships at Umlazi, one school principal, I'm not going to mention his name because I've seen KwaZulu people here. At his school, he said, it's a high school, one of the most successful schools in the township of Umlazi. He said he has got classrooms of 60 and 70, and there is nothing that he can do about it. And the school has got close to 3,000 learners. So there is surely overcrowding there and other challenges. So what is happening then? A number of teachers are saying, if they had an opportunity, they would want to leave the system. They would want to leave the profession because of all of this. The literature, ladies and gentlemen, perceives educator well-being as a multifaceted mental health construct whose value is related to school climate, inclusion, where you have spoken about this, where you feel that you are part and parcel of the school. There are school principals out there who do not understand their roles, that they've got to be inclusive in their leadership and management. They've got to understand that they've got to treat colleagues equally. They've got to treat students equally. So inclusion then becomes an important topic for that school and for those teachers and for those learners. There are also issues of diversity in these schools. And all of this is important, especially for educator well-being. So literature then perceives educator well-being as multifaceted mental health construct whose value is related to school climate, inclusion, and student outcomes, while others define it as diverse and fluid, respecting the individual, the family, and the community beliefs, values, experiences, culture, opportunities, and contexts across time and change. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps to summarize this point, we now work in schools that are multicultural, multiracial, and we have to be conscious of the culture, the experiences, and the values of all these learners and the educators that work in our schools. The fact that someone perhaps is white, when you are a school principal who is African or colored or Indian, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. What should matter is what this person brings to the school. What value does this person bring to the school? So educator well-being then is reflected in a positive attitude towards teaching that stems from supportive relationships. Very important term, supportive relationships amongst the teachers, but also amongst the learners. The belief that one can teach effectively and the feeling that one's personal and professional needs and expectations are met. In a school, ladies and gentlemen, it is the prerogative of the school principal to develop relationships of trust, that whatever that I, as a post-level 1 teacher, share with the school principal or my HOD or the deputy principal is not going to become the so-called town talk. So trust relationships are very, very important. The social, emotional, and physical well-being of educators is a shared responsibility and a critical component of student learning and the overall community well-being, especially in the context of the advent of COVID and perhaps the post-COVID era. When educators feel supported, ladies and gentlemen, they will be able to manage their daily stresses of teaching better. So it matters then to have educator well-being as a priority in the school. Why? Because the teachers that deliver the curriculum in the classroom will be able to work better, will be able to manage their classrooms better. And of course, the issue of classroom skills or classroom management skills becomes very, very important. But also the issue of people management, which emanates from the school principal, also becomes very important. Secondly, the teachers will be able to establish and maintain effective classroom management strategies that are productive for learning. They'll be able to cultivate supportive and caring relationships with their learners. Further, when teachers' well-being is taken care of, and they work together, through working together, they'll be able to moderate their stress. They may not necessarily be able to eliminate stress completely, but they'll be able to navigate the stress that they come across in their daily lives and the demands of the profession of the professional life. And of course, we know that as professionals, there is so much demand on us from the parents, from the Department of Education, perhaps also from the unions, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the demands of professional life are very stressful to a number of us. When I'm saying us, I'm referring to both those who are leading and managing the school and the teachers. And of course, this will help them to regulate their emotions. When teachers are working together, they will be able to assist one another. And this forms social support that would come from the teacher mentors at the school. The expectation is that those that are in senior positions as HODs, deputy principals, they are mentoring the younger ones. So here is an HOD in the physics and maths department, mentoring other teachers in the department. So when we have that kind of support, the stress levels are likely to come down. And therefore, educator well-being is taken care of. Educator well-being, ladies and gentlemen, is important because schools have an essential role to play in supporting learners to make healthy lifestyle choices and understand the effects of their choices on their health and well-being. Ladies and gentlemen, the healthy lifestyle choices that the learners make will determine their success or their failure. When they begin to involve themselves, for instance, in drugs, in violence, that also has an impact or has results on them. It's either they will succeed as learners and in life, or they will not. Childhood then and adolescence period is critical in the development of long-term attitudes towards the personal well-being and the lifestyle choices that learners make. The social and emotional skills, the knowledge and the behaviors that young people learn in the classroom help them to build the resilience that they need and set the pattern for how they will manage their physical and mental health throughout their lives. So this becomes important. And it is our responsibility as teachers to teach them how to navigate this. But we must start somewhere. And that somewhere is the school principal working with the teachers to teach these skills to the learners. Sometimes it's the school principal identifying people who can assist him or her for teachers to learn these skills if they don't have them. So schools are able to provide students with reliable information and deepen their understanding of the choices that they make and face. They are also able to provide students with the intellectual skills required to reflect critically on these choices and on the influences that society brings on them, including through peer pressure, advertising, social media, and family and cultural values. So in other words, all those influences from within the school and outside of the school are important. And learners have got to be taught how to navigate all of these challenges. There is therefore a direct link between well-being and academic achievement at school and vice versa. In other words, well-being is a crucial prerequisite for achievement, and achievement is essential for well-being. Physical activity is associated with improved learning and the ability to concentrate. Strong supportive relationships provide students with the emotional resources to step out of their intellectual comfort zone and explore new ideas and ways of thinking, which is fundamental to educational achievement. And all of this, ladies and gentlemen, can only happen if we have got teachers who understand what they have got to do with their learners. But also school principals who understand the role that should be played by the teachers in learner well-being, or the school principal educator well-being. Well-being is also important for developing important democratic competencies. Positive emotions are associated with the development of flexibility and adaptability. I'll talk to this later on. Openness to other cultures and beliefs, self-efficacy and tolerance of ambiguity. Ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to develop democracy in our country. Therefore, democracy is a national project. What needs to happen then is that we need to develop flexibility, where you are flexible as a school principal, as an educator, and as learners, where you are tolerant of other people's beliefs, religions, even if you don't believe in them, and cultures. And of course, issues of ambiguity, all of which are at the heart of this democratic project that I'm talking about. So, what is the role then of the school principal in educator well-being? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm also supportive of the idea by Mwangi, who says school principals and their SMTs have a role to provide a positive and supportive working environment. So at a school, if you are a principal in this audience, you now know you have a role to play to provide a positive and supportive working environment. How do you do that? Through your actions, through you supporting educators, through you understanding that you are not there to criticize and to ridicule those below you, but you are there to support them in their teaching. You are not there to find fault. Yes, there will be weaknesses with teachers, but we should not be focusing solely on weaknesses. We should focus on the positives that they make. And the more we support the positives, the negatives or the weaknesses will fall by the wayside. It makes sense then school principals realize that they cannot do this alone. And therefore, in addition to the support that is provided by the Department of Education, they themselves at school level should establish wellness structures that are there or will be there to support this idea or this notion of wellness, but of educator wellness in particular. The school principal and his or her team can also support educator well-being in a variety of ways, as engaging or promoting professional, social, and emotional learning. This, ladies and gentlemen, we believe at school level can happen in many different ways. One of those is the development of educators, where you understand as a school principal that yes, teachers are professionals. Yes, when they come to school, they already have a qualification, but you understand your role in terms of in-service development, what we call continuous professional development sometimes. So you provide the knowledge of and access to formal support networks that are there in the Department of Education, such as the Employee Assistance or Wellness Program, or in some cases, they have what is called the mental and psychological programs. Some of our teachers, we know, they take too much into the bottle, and eventually they have mental challenges. So there must be mental and psychological support. When I was a school principal in Durban, I had a few colleagues who were addicted to the bottle. And we had to do something, or I had to do something about that. Otherwise, this was going to impact badly on that particular educator. The second point here is that when school principals are attending to teacher well-being, this will provide, yes, improved school improvement management skills. In other words, we expect the school principal to have good management skills, working with the SMT and supporting teachers, providing excellent instructional and well-being to support the educators. Ladies and gentlemen, briefly, when we talk instructional leadership, which is what we are talking about here, is that we would expect all school principals to be biased in favor of teaching and learning. That is what instructional leadership is about. It's about you protecting teaching time. But you cannot protect teaching time or learning time if teachers have got issues, if teachers have got problems, and you are not solving those problems with your management team. Therefore, you as a school principal, you need to have good management skills to impart to the teachers and, of course, eventually to the learners. There is also an expectation from your part that there will be equal treatment of everybody at the school, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of their race, regardless of their tribe, regardless of their religion. There is just equal treatment. Where as a school principal, you provide high quality support that fosters this positive school environment that I'm talking about. The next point is about school culture, where you have a responsibility as a school principal to create school environments that promote a sense of belonging. I've spoken about this earlier on. Trust, respect, Ubuntu, and value for both educators and learners. You know, when I work at a university, my line manager is my dean. I want to have belief that my dean respects me. My dean trusts me. But I must also behave in such a manner that my dean respects me and trusts me. So at a school level, this is a two-way street. It takes two to tango. So you have got the educators, so you have got the management working and trusting and respecting and valuing both the educators and the learners. And in turn, this is reciprocated, and educators and learners do likewise. The next point, which is also very important, and I've spoken about this, which relates also to what I've just spoken about now, is the issue of relationship building, where you provide opportunities in the staff room for educators to develop professional networks that enable them to learn from one another and connect during the times of both celebrations and when there are problems, when there is turbulence. Like right now, or in the recent past, we've had turbulence in our schools where educators were dying in numbers. People that we know in the communities were dying in numbers. People were falling sick and were not at school for weeks or for months. That's turbulence. How then do you manage in the context of turbulence? That is where, colleagues, it becomes very important for you to read and to read widely. There are so many good books out there that speak to managing in the context of turbulence. And of course, the next point is about professional learning communities, which we spoke about earlier on before most of you joined the platform. These professional learning communities or communities of practice, they enable educators to learn, to develop, and to grow. But this time, they grow together. That's the difference, because they work together in the professional learning communities. They grow together. Ladies and gentlemen, let me expand on these professional learning communities because it's important for schools. When you are school principals, it is very important that you identify other principals in your circuit or in your district, and you form a school principals professional learning community. And from time to time, you meet as this professional learning community, and you grow together. When you are deputy principals or HODs, you do the same. You form a professional learning community. When you are teachers teaching a particular subject, could be geography, it could be accounting, it could be maths, you come together in the school, and you work together. So the teacher who is teaching grade 12 is not working in silo, but he or she is meeting on a regular basis with teachers in the lower grades, grade 8, 9, 10, 11. So you share experiences. Through this, you are able to learn from other educators, you are able to grow together, you are able to develop yourselves. We also believe that it is important at a school level for teachers to have a voice. There is research out there which suggests that where teachers are consulted at a school level, they will be happy. They are happy because they know their school principal does not dictate on them. So what does he do? or what does she do? She is a Democrat. She listens to them. She hears their views as well. So when you provide opportunities for teachers to participate in decision-making at school, to support professional growth, this also promotes buy-in of the school processes by the educators. And everybody is happy. But where a school principal is a dictator, he thinks or she thinks she's a lone ranger, we have a problem. Teachers will complain. Teachers will say, this school principal does not consult us. This school principal merely imposes his ideas or her ideas on us, and it doesn't work. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to conclude now. But before I conclude, I want to say to you, there are skills that I believe a school principal should develop. You should read about. There are so many books out there. You can go to good bookshops and buy these books and read what they are saying. Or you can come to university. We happen to work in the Department of Educational Leadership and Management. There are many of these departments in various universities in this country, so that you can learn more about these skills. The skills that I want to talk to this afternoon are two, and it's the skill of resilience, and the second one is the skill of being an adaptive leader. So let me start with resilience. Resilience, ladies and gentlemen, is the capacity to adapt successfully in the face of a threat or a disaster. We as a country in early 2020, we had a serious pandemic or a disaster. Thousands of people have died. The statistics that we have seem to suggest that at the moment, more than 100,000 people have died in this country through COVID. But I've also heard other professors who work in schools of health sciences making an argument that we have a serious problem of underreporting in this country. In their view, the number is 3 times more than what we have officially. So in their view, then, more than 300,000 people have died just in this country as a result of COVID. So we face that disaster. It is also not something that you are either born with this resilience. You are not born with or without. Resilience develops as people grow and they gain better knowledge, thinking, and self-management skills. When you have got those self-management skills, which we will talk to just now, and more knowledge. So the expectation then is that we as educators, we as school leaders, we need to identify people who will come and talk to our teachers about resilience and resilient skills, and so that our teachers are able to acquire these skills. Resilience also comes from supportive relationships with parents, with your wife or husband, peers, and other educators at the school. Some people have requisite personality characteristics to be resilient alongside the skills and strengths that they have learned. Others may not be as resilient or have the necessary skills, and they are likely to be overwhelmed when they experience difficult situations. So what must we do? This is where then we come in as school leaders and we teach them the types of skills that they need so that they don't panic and they are not overwhelmed. Learning to be resilient, therefore, becomes an important skill that all of us in this platform should learn. The next one and the last one is adaptive skills. here, how leaders encourage people to adapt, to face and to deal with problems, challenges, and change is important. So we have a responsibility as school principals to train our teachers not to panic when there is change, when there are pandemics. But it must start with us first. We ourselves shouldn't panic. We should have these adaptive skills so that we are able to teach our colleagues that don't panic. Change is here, and change is here to stay. Adaptive school leaders therefore prepare and encourage educators to deal with change. Very important skill, I think, especially for a leader. Educators are leaders at school. Again, talking about this leadership thing. We are all leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we understand that, but at different levels. The school principal is a leader at a school level. The HOD is a leader at a departmental level or at a phase level. And then the classroom teacher or the subject teacher is also a leader in the classroom. We also have even learners who are leaders in their classrooms and in the schools. So the notion of distributed or shared or participative leadership is very important, especially for schools to understand. In addition to educator well-being, ladies and gentlemen, which is the focus of this presentation, there are other types of well-being that are also important. And I've listed them there. Well-being such as professional or workplace well-being, affectional well-being, emotional well-being, social well-being, financial well-being, spiritual well-being, physical well-being, societal well-being, and many others that you may think of. These well-beings, ladies and gentlemen, are important. And we at a school level have a responsibility to decide which ones are more important for our schools, for our professions, so that we identify people such as your psychologists, your specialists, such as your financial planners, your social workers, and so on, to assist educators to manage all of the above. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, this presentation has attempted to explore sustainable solutions to educator well-being in the context of COVID-19 and other changes that are taking place in our schools, and the role that should be played by the school principal. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you have seen through this presentation how important you are as a school principal. And when you don't play your part as well as you do, as you should, the school is likely to go down. And in doing all of this, remember, you are not doing it alone. You should be working with your team called the SMT. To do what? To develop and to support educators if they are to remain effective in the classrooms. May I stop here for this afternoon so that perhaps in the next 10 minutes or so, we can engage in a discussion. Thank you.